Welcome to Unlearn, the podcast that redefines the playbook for modern business leaders.
In a world where yesterday's truths are today's challenges, every episode brings you bold ideas and visionary strategies to thrive in a world where the only constant is change.
Let's dive in. Welcome to Unlearn. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Unlearn podcast, where Kelly and I have now decided that we're going to actually focus the podcast on business leaders, not just go-to-market leaders. So the audience for this is going to be CEOs, CROs, CMOs, CFOs, CPOs. If you have a C in front of your title, we're for you. And so as we kick this season off, we're super grateful to have an awesome guest today. Jason, for one, welcome to the podcast. Do you want to just give our audience a little bit of an intro to who you are, and then we can kick things off?
Sure, thanks. Well, first off, thanks for having me. It's exciting, and I'm a big fan of the podcast, and so I appreciate what you're doing and all the effort and time it takes to really build a community, especially around seeing the unmet need that you did is quite impressive. And so I think the way you've gone about it is really, really fantastic. And you're giving people something that I think you've heard from the community that they need or want. And so first off, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Super.
So I'm in what's coming up on my 23rd year here at Microsoft. And so I've had this incredible opportunity to be at this company, starting as a field seller out in the field in Denver, Colorado, making my way around the company and over here to Redmond at a time when remote was a novelty, not a requirement or not something that we all live in every day. And so along that journey, I've had this incredible opportunity at a company that I deeply love and care about to work with customers, partners, engineering teams, marketing teams, leaders around the world on a journey that has led me to, selling to customers and doing architecture. Technical architecture is where I started with customers, to helping build products around the Surface technology that we launched many years ago. I got the privilege to work on our retail stores and work in the consumer space and see how people thought about our brand and our products in that regard. And then have a chance to really take a role that was pretty life-changing for me, where I got the opportunity to work with our CEO and spend time with him, leading strategy and chief of staff for him for a while. And then this thing called the pandemic hit and extended that time and surprised all of us. And so I ended up spending about 7 years there. When this new opportunity came along, or this new, I wouldn't say business opportunity, which it turned into, but this new transformational opportunity emerged in the world, and it came through technology, in this case, or computing technology of generative AI. And it led Satya and I to have this discussion of how do we really transform the way we engage companies that write software on our platform, or engage them to write on our platform, and really help them understand what this new secular shift was going to bring to the world. And so that led me to this role. And here I am today with Asher and Kelly.
Well, Jason's pretty modest, but I actually like for the first time, Kelly will tell you, I don't prep a lot for these podcasts, but just for you, we actually went back straight into your career history. And it was interesting that you started off working for Jack Nicklaus's company or with it. You want to talk a little bit about that? And then you were a network engineer. And then you were actually a technology solution professional, which is interesting because when I finished school and I actually joined at Microsoft ISV, one of the few groups that I really built a good, deep relationships with was the technology solution professionals group.
TSPs.
And I met, TSPs. Yeah, those are the unsung heroes, basically, of the whole thing. And there was this guy called Jack O'Donnell. And then there is another gentleman by the name of Jack Graefe, who, by the way, is now the chief partner officer at BCG.
Cool.
So there's some pretty awesome talent that came out of that group. But tell us a little bit about your time with the Big Bears, or sorry, it's actually the Golden Bears.
Golden Bear, yeah, the Golden Bear. Again, I've had this really unique opportunity in my life to spend time close to some pretty tremendous people that are also leaders, right? There's great people and accomplished people in the world, whether they're, we all have our personal opinion on that, whether they're authors or artists or musicians, sports figures, business leaders, whatnot. For me, business always excited me, and sports. Growing up, I admired a lot of people, but then I had a chance to get close to some people who were really leaders, right, and game changers. And Jack was one of those people. He was my first real encounter, as I was very passionate about golf growing up in South Florida. And I saw an opportunity to really be a little counterculture. I think it was my first step in that direction, where coming out of a school in the Northeast that was pretty heavily recruited to go to Wall Street, I thought I want to do something a little different. And so I went to the golf industry and probably made my parents scratch their heads a little bit, thinking, you're going where? But I got a chance to work with Jack. And what Jack taught me was, I always quote one of the things he said, where he said, focus on remedies, not faults. And this was a person who, in hindsight, I think started to teach me the growth mindset at a very early age, that Jack did not get defeated by his mistakes. He did not get defeated by his losses. It pushed him to work harder because he knew there was more in him to grow and be better at. And so Jack had this incredible focus, incredible discipline. And I think he was one of the first people I had the chance and privilege with in my life to really see that people who do something very different have a discipline and a focus that is just unique.
Yeah.
And he was very unique in that. His what he used to talk about, not missing a day of practice or hitting golf balls, not missing one day in a year, no matter where they were. And his wife would corroborate that and say, yeah, even on vacation, it always had to have a golf course. But at the same time, that was to hone his skill. And he's famous for saying that a pro golfer that takes something like more than, I think, 2 days off or 3 days off, that's a long enough time span to actually lose their edge as an elite professional. And so it's that finely honed of a skill that a small period of time means you can lose that edge. And so his discipline around that was just really, really amazing. But at the same time, she would often talk about Barbara, his wife, that discipline carried over from the golf course to his family life. Incredible family person, to his physical therapy, never missed a day of PT, right? And this is a person whose living was made with his body, essentially. And his discipline there was equal to the skill he had to show up and do every day that people observed. And so for me, Jack taught me, one, focus on growth and getting better every day. Don't focus on the mistakes you've made, learn from them. And that discipline of, if you want something, to be great at something, you've got to put in the time. Jack put in the time.
Wasn't Jack Nicklaus the guy who made a 150 or 125 yard putt in nonchalantly just getting up on the greens with Arnold Palmer? I think there's some video about it. He's just like, hey, do you want to show me? You want me to show you how this is done? He just like drops the ball, hits it, and it just happens to go through this like 3-layered green, which is pretty incredible.
Yeah, sure. I would get to do some exhibition events with him and watch him do some things with a golf ball that would kind of defy physics. And you just think, how does this even happen? But that's what, as he said one time when he was going in for hip surgery, someone asked him, oh, Jack, did you get injured, right? How did this happen? Yeah. He said, when you hit I think he said 2,700 golf balls a day for X numbers of decades, he's like, parts just kind of wear out. But when you just stop and think how many golf balls that is every day, you're going to get pretty good at it. You're going to be able to do things that, I definitely can't do with a golf ball. Yeah. But I wouldn't doubt if he's done some pretty phenomenal things. And those are the ones we've probably seen on camera, right? Think about the shots he's had that no one ever saw.
So, Jason, were you able to, seeing that, were you able to incorporate that into your own life, even though not for golf, but for whatever you were pursuing next?
Yeah, great question. Definitely not golf, because I'm and I have 4 kids.
I might do the next golf outing, but maybe not now.
Oh, no, you should, because I have 4 children. I haven't picked up a club in decades. That I learned from Jack, right? Commit to the family. Yeah. Kelly, it's a great question. I think what I took from Jack was, again, that idea of focusing on remedies, not the mistakes. And then that discipline. I mean, hearing how he maniacally focused on things that were valuable to him or that he valued really helped me in my career get focused on identifying my values. And knowing that, for a guy like this too, it was okay to make family a value, right? It was not just about success to him. It was about his kids and about success there too. And that resonated with me.
So let's talk about your values. I mean, this is interesting because we just had Anwar Hanif on the pod. He's the head of ecosystems at Canva,
Yeah.
and all of his answers were like straight tied into values, which I was just it was awesome to just see and hear. But we'd love to hear yours too.
Yeah. Oh boy. And a public discussion of my values. I don't know if that's tricky. Let me tell you how I got there. So I had this incredible, I'd always been very values based in my choices and principle based in the paths I took.
Okay.
I always kind of knew what my values were: honesty, integrity, work, fun, love to have fun,
Yeah.
and so growing people really, it was very in my ethos to build partnerships. And that's why I think I love this role so much. But it was really about, I had this great mentor. He was a Microsoft senior executive. He's gone on to be incredibly successful. And his name's Bob Muglia. He was at Snowflake. He was in a lot of great places. And I'd known Bob for a long time. And then we sat down one time and he said, I said, okay, I need some career coaching. Finally asked him, after these years of friendship. And he said, okay, no problem. Tell me your values. And I fumbled. And I was like, I know I'm values based. I know what I value, but I'd never written them down and really thought about my values in that way. He said, hey, no problem. Come back when you have them. And he kicked me out. And I was devastated. And I thought, oh my gosh, like here's this incredible business leader that I've admired for so long. And he just threw me out to go think about my values. And I thought, okay, maybe that was it was a good experience for me to realize there's just something so much deeper to leadership and so much deeper than business performance and managing your team and writing code and shipping product. It was really about being a values-based leader. And so I did the work. And so I went and I went to Bing and I was like, okay, how do I write down my values? And now this was a long time ago, which I had to actually search for it. Today, I would have just opened Copilot and I would have written them for me. I would have looked at all my emails and said, "Here's what you value." That would have been very telling. So I wrote this down, and the first thing I did, Asher, is I took them to my wife, my partner, and I said, "Are these right? Like, do I reflect these?" And she gave me some really great feedback and was very direct. And, I think these for sure. And this one, yeah, it's a little bit of a stretch. You might think about it this way. And that was a really good thing for me. And then I went back to Bob and we had a career discussion. And he really helped me understand that identifying your values is a key starting point. Giving yourself permission to change them as your life changes is the other lesson. Because I wrote these values down early in my marriage, no kids, very different stage of my life.
Yeah.
And I was worried that if I put them on paper, those were it for the rest of my life. And what I quickly learned, especially from Bob, was it's okay. And Satya taught me this over time too, was give yourself permission to revisit them and adjust as your life changes. And they have changed. And I actually have this standing, meeting with myself on my calendar to review my values every year now. It used to be 6 months. And that really helped me kind of put me in the right mindset of as I wanted to grow my career. So Kelly, I would say that was a big thing for me and Asher in terms of the value-based journey.
I think this is great. I mean, I just asked because like we have like 500-600 partnership leaders in the community, but that are at the leader level. And every time I see a mismatch in like the person's values and the company's values, I'm just like, this is a recipe for disaster. Like, I mean, it's going to happen. And every now and then I actually have to have the conversation with the leader and to just ask them to say like, hey, just take a little bit of time, like introspect. And if you need to take a lot of time, that's also okay, right? Like there's no end to this, right? And write them down and just see if you actually map, because inadvertently companies are designed so the values are then operationalized, and you're going to get caught at some point in time, and you're going to think you're bad, but it's actually not your fault because you're just a different person with different values. And if you don't map, you just need to go somewhere else where they will, and you'll succeed really well. And so we've helped quite a few leaders like avoid some pretty drastic career mistakes in the last like 4 or 5 years. It's been very interesting. That's why I'm always curious when a leader comes up and says, hey, here's how I actually did this through a values-based system, which I think is actually the right compass to use to pick the right company where you can succeed.
Yeah, I mean, if you can align your values with your company's values, the sky's the limit. And for me,
Yeah.
that's I've been very, very lucky and privileged to do that at Microsoft. And then the last 7 years working closest with our leader taught me
Yeah.
even deepen that, right, where I realized that it's a very values based company. But you're right, and the values of a company and the culture is a reflection of its people. It's not what's written on a poster in the conference room. It's
Yeah,
really about
totally.
how people live it and reflect it.
Yeah, and just for our listeners, so that they can understand how this translates to outcomes, in your tenure with Satya, you guys delivered like $2 trillion worth of value for stakeholders. I mean that's part of the story most people don't articulate. They just stay on the I wouldn't say this the squishy side, but it's meaningful. But then it actually translates into real outcomes. Even though I think in Satya's tenure, he's delivered like $3 trillion worth of value, which is incredible. I mean, by any measure, right? But in your tenure with him, I was just mapping this thing out this morning. I'm like, wow, that's actually $2+ trillion worth of value that you guys delivered, which is incredible. So congrats on that.
Yeah, thanks. It's I think our culture and the transformation he's led with our culture has really been so instrumental in the growth of
Yeah.
the company and the subsistence of the company over time. It is one of our greatest assets, and it's been a journey. It's been a journey, but it does start with those values. It starts with that simplifying and clarifying for people what it is we'll stand for.
Yeah.
What would you say are some of the strongest work values that you have and that you've had in your role, say the last 10 years, that have enabled you to kind of drive impact?
Integrity is a non-negotiable for me. That's always one that, and it's often some people have argued me or said to me, "Oh, why do you even list that? It should just be understood." And I said it should be, but it's not that way for everyone. So I list it to just make sure that it's very clear that that is a top one for me. Um, you know, for me, I really value growing other people and helping them achieve their dreams and aspirations. And so I always start in any new organization, any new relationship with a teammate is what are your dreams and aspirations? We all have things we're trying to achieve in life, whether it's the path we dreamt of as a kid or it's what we've kind of worked ourselves into as adults. I don't think it's unique that people would get up every day and think that the job they're in right now today is absolutely their dream job and their purpose on this earth. Maybe it is, or maybe it's a step on their journey. And so for me, I want to know what that journey is. I want to know what that dream is and how do I help people get there? And so that value of growing others or empowering others to reach their dreams is one that I really subscribe to, and I think has helped me because my team knows, or I hope they know, that I recognize they're on the journey, and that I want them to use this time we have together to really develop themselves and grow and achieve what it is their long term vision is.
Can you talk a little bit about, I don't know if tension's the right word, but I think balancing the interest of the business and the need to like hit a particular outcome with all the people on your team. And I think this applies to partner relationships as well, right? How do you kind of keep the business moving forward in the right direction, have the most impact, but also making sure that you're making space for growing those dreams, which to your point, everybody's on their own journey. Sometimes things start to deviate a little bit. Maybe they were in a role, it was perfect, but then the business starts to need this. They want to go that way. I realize it's very complex and something that's in flow, but do you kind of have a framework for thinking about that in terms of like keeping those things in the right balance?
Well, I think it's a constant balance. It's a constant conversation or discussion with your team and understanding one, being very transparent about the needs of the business, the direction you're taking it or the company wants to go, and how you're translating that into your organization. And then, having those one-on-one conversations with people to one, understand where their head is, where they, if they want to share it. Some people are more hesitant, but understanding what that vision is that they hold for themselves, and then making sure that you're checking in pretty regularly on their path and journey and aligning it to the business, and being clear with them where there is opportunity for better alignment, or maybe it's just not going to be great alignment over time, and how do you help them, or maybe it's perfect alignment, right? And you've got someone who's just you've made an adjustment to the business strategy that completely aligns to where they want to go, and that's even better. But I think that transparency and communication, Kelly, and my learning something I've had to get much better at, and I still have so much better to get in terms of this, is just making sure I'm having that constant communication with not only my leaders, but with the organization. And so the broader organization understands, where the company is headed and where we are lining up behind that vision for the company. I think that's pretty critical in that.
Yeah, I love that advice. And I think that's so true of partnerships as well, because as you know, right, like platforms evolve and they often might go into competitive space. The partnerships that had great synergy become competitive. But I feel like as long as you act with transparency and are forthright and like communicate, that usually mitigates most of like the breaking apart of things that are inevitable. So I think that's really smart.
Yeah, I think you're right. I really do. I think, and that's what I'm trying to emphasize with my team. I think I've got a great set of leaders who understand that as well. As these can't be transactional. They need to be relationships, and relationships they have different unique qualities about them. We all have them. We all have them with people, in our lives, and you have to think of it the same way. Having partners and business partners understand that, you're in something for the long haul, that this is a temporal discussion, not just a quick transaction, I think is important, that they know, to your point, the commitment is there over time. Therefore, we're going to put the work in to make sure that we are having open and direct discussions about, there will be places, especially in our case, where we will compete, but at the same time, we have opportunity to grow them as well. And when we encounter those situations, we need to talk about them, right? We need to bring them to each other and have rational decisions, because in the end, we're still better together than apart. And I think we can still.
I just want to give our audience some context of just like Jason's org, right? Because you have a group that focuses on ISVs, you have another group that focuses on digital natives, you have another person, I believe, who focuses on private equity and VC relationships, and then you have a number of people that I believe report directly to you that are the most strategic partners of Microsoft, I think, right? Is that the makeup, right?
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I would phrase it a little differently to say we focus on software development companies, right?
Yeah,
the way we kind of organize them or talk about them is kind of a legacy and some internal constructs of how the company organizes around these audiences. But in my mind, our job is to really help software development companies build their businesses and build them on our platform. And so in this new wave of artificial intelligence, generative artificial intelligence, we believe we have the best platform. I think, software companies make these choices, whether you're from the startup or you're an at scale, very large, software company like the names we all know. But you go through this stage where you're going to pick your development platform. And so I think we provide a great option there. I think we're doing quite well in that with GitHub and with VS Code and things like that. You're going to choose your compute platform. And transparently, we've had to catch up a little bit there. Others have led. But I think we have a great offering, and we continue to win share and do really well there because people see value in our platform. And now this new thing is emerging where you're going to pick your AI compute platform. And I think we offer the best platform for that in the market today. And I think that is important for software companies to understand how they do that with us. And some will just come and build, and they'll build and they'll provide their solutions to either consumers or others, or they'll kind of go their own way. But some will reach a point where they say, I want to partner with you. And I want to really go to market with you because of what you offer, Microsoft, because you offer a tremendous amount of value for B2B, B2B2C solutions, ones who can really tap into that breadth and scale we offer in the enterprise. And that's when that partnership forms. And I think we really think about, how do we, number one, I always start with, how do those partners want to grow their business? That's what's most important. They all have their own, it's kind of the same philosophy. They all have their dreams and ambitions and aspirations of growth, especially now in this new way. What are those visions and those plans they have? And how do we translate that into building something unique with them on our platform? Because I think it's that uniqueness that then helps us co-sell together and go to market together and say, you want this solution on our platform because it's unique. And helping that partner know that we're doing that because we want it to align with their growth and their vision for growth. That's really important to me. I think they, in this new era, everyone sees the opportunity with generative AI. And it means for software companies, we're going to build new products, right? They're going to need to build products. And so that's what I think the value we bring as an organization, as my team, is we're going to help build with you, and then we're going to help sell with you. And that sell with ranges depending on how big the company is, what their solutions are, and things like that. But I believe that if we help them build solutions that drive their growth, that they'll see value in the platform we provide.
Okay, we'll come back to your time with Satya, but I think there's something slightly more important here, which is when you moved into this role, at least from my vantage point, especially because your team's a customer, right? Like I saw the at least what I heard was like, hey, Jason's like busy. He's like really studying the environment and stuff. So I'm curious what you learned about this part of the business and what were your key takeaways, and then how did they shape what you're thinking about the next, like, let's say 12 or 24 months. Some of it we saw in the Ignite keynote, which was fantastic, right? I recommend everybody to go see it, but I'm curious about the journey that took place. When do you go to this role till now? And then what does the next 12 months look like for you?
Yeah. It's been an awesome journey, to be honest. It's very, very, I wouldn't say unexpected, but it's been more growth and learning, I think, than anyone ever estimates, right? You always know you're going to grow, but wow. It's been really great. For me, it's been a process of, I probably underestimated the size and breadth of the amount of groups in the company that are engaging with software development companies. And so just getting my arms around that, and that how many people are reaching out and working with these companies, big and small, is really, really astounding. It's astounding from my perspective, but as a software company, it's probably a little overwhelming. And so if you are a company trying to write on our platform or just want to know more about it, where you go, how you get those answers, how you get the build with help, right? The engineering help and things can be really hard. That's what I've learned is we've got to do better for our software development company partners and customers. We can do better. And we've got to do better because I think they're asking for it. They deserve it. And I think we've got to get sharper there. And so that speaks a little bit to what I learned as well as what I'm thinking about, because this is a moment where everyone's trying to move quickly. Everyone's trying to understand how generative AI can really impact business growth. I think we've got a lot of experience here as a company who's put solutions into the market, whether it's our M365 Copilot or the Copilot Bing Chat that's turned into its own Copilot there, the Windows Copilot. Like, we've got more experience than most, and we can help people write their solutions with that experience. And so that learning, Asher, was really around trying to get some sense of all the different ways we're engaging and create some clarity for our partners on, okay, when I'm your partner in Microsoft, what does that mean? And what does it mean for me because I'm this size of a partner and I'm doing this, or I have this particular industry solution. And I think I have a lot of work to do there. We have a lot of work. No way is it solved. I think we're just scratching the surface because, as you said, it's been over a year now. And then when you overlay that learning process with the way our fiscal years work and things go, we've got to get more agile and get those changes made for our partners.
Yeah, I feel like anything. Sorry, okay, I was just gonna wrap up with it feels like anytime, because I've been a part of a Microsoft ISV a couple of times, right? And these transformations take between 12 to 24 months, and you just have to be patient because folks on your side are working. But in your Ignite keynote, the one thing that stuck with me was actually you started off with the design. And it's super interesting because, again, I'll go back to our friend from Canva, just on the pod with us. And he also said, hey, we really need to get deep into helping these companies design their products before they build, because so many companies are just building and then they're looking for differentiation after that. But if you just spend some time on designing, it was super encouraging to kind of see that slide. Do you want to talk a little bit about just the design portion of this? Because I think the build and the grow stuff, the market pretty well understands how the resources that are available for you, but this design element, at least was new for me, and I'm sure if it's new for me, there's going to be at least 5 of me that it's new for.
Yeah, I mean, you said it right, and I think the person you had on said it very well too. It starts with, and especially because of the phase we're in now with generative AI, right? Yeah. It's very new. There's not a lot of experience. I mean, the questions that people bring to us are everything around, whether it's architecture. I mean, look how fast this has come, keeping in mind that, our products have been in the market less than 18 months. I mean, it's been remarkably fast. We're already into this next wave that we're seeing in terms of the design and build patterns. What started as let's just all build agents, let's understand different models. It was fine tuning versus RAG. Like, what does it mean? Think about how quickly we've evolved into this new, with this next wave of agentic, where now we all have agents, and how are they talking with each other? And RAG has emerged as the pattern, in terms of AI applications. And is it one model? Is it multiple models? And then the cost efficiency. And so for us, helping our partners understand that, right? And we're publishing a ton of materials and papers, and I've got a fantastic technology team that engages with our partners and then is looking at those patterns around the world that we see with the biggest software companies and helping share that with the ones who are trying to build them now. The ironic thing I think now is that this new journey has started because every software company is at a different stage of maturity, clearly, right? You have some that are big and been around a long time. Some are just started this morning, I'm sure. But on that spectrum, there's different various levels of maturity.
Yep.
With AI, they're all starting at this new place, right? Everyone has to say, okay, now how do I start and embrace this new technology where there's just not a lot of patterns out there? And so I think we offer some really compelling learnings that we're trying to share more because we've designed a lot of applications for business or for consumers. We're learning so quickly at scale. And I think that design phase is really important. Before, last time I checked, people didn't have a lot of money to waste in this environment. Capital is very constrained, and you got to make the right decisions to build stuff. Now, there's always got to be experimentation, but you got to build important things quickly.
How do you think about that kind of strategically in terms of there is all this innovation rolling out incredibly fast pace, or just in a historical time period where that's the case? Like, how do you think about doing that with the ISVs, with your partners, right? Because I think there's a lot of things that come into play. As you said, some of these software companies, they might not have like infinite runway, so their resources might be more precious, and you might be opening things up, they're in alpha or beta or pretty early, and you yourself don't know the exact trajectory of where it's going to land, right? And so it sounds very collaborative from your perspective, and also very like education based, where you're sharing as much as you can with the partners. But how do you think about that balance of like moving very quickly and just kind of rolling partners into that motion in a way that works for everyone?
It's a great question. It's an important question. I go back to that maturity journey, right? And some partners or software development companies, are able to respond very quickly and experiment. Some of them just have more of an experimental ethos to them, right? Where they're willing to embrace the latest and get in and kind of find their way with things. And there's others that are just, big and small, who are just more conservative. And so I think we have to, as a platform provider, we have to be open to helping all of them meet them where they are. And I know that's a term that, gets thrown around a lot in business, right? But this is one that as I started to learn in this role over the last year, it is probably never more true than now. As you articulated it, Kelly, like everybody's at their different place. And for some, generative AI is going to transform their business very, very quickly. Like it's just obvious what it is, right? It's obvious how when you apply an LLM's capabilities to what their solution is today, you can just see it light up and think, wow, that's going to be transformed. For others, it's not so clear. I think some are looking at it thinking, I think I need to do something here. I know I need to do something here, but is it something I need to build into my product? Or is it something that will actually do more transformation within my organization, right? Within business functions? And I think we have to be there to help them not only experiment, but support them when they say, okay, I'm not ready to, rebuild my product with generative AI, but I am ready to deploy it in a certain way with a smaller group in my company, or maybe even a certain feature set in my product. And so I think it really is meeting the customers and the partners where they are, because again, it's early days. Some people say this middle innings. I wish we could say it's middle innings. I hope not, because I think this one's got a lot more to go. I think it's very early. And so you're right, Kelly, in terms of it's hard. It's hard. And it takes time and discussion of really helping them think through their strategy, because a lot of partners are coming to us just saying, like, I know I need to do something, right? Or my CEO is saying I need to be, experimenting or building a generative AI. I just don't know what that means for us yet.
Yeah.
And I think we have a chance to help them.
I'm waiting to hear the story where some kid, 6 or 8-year-old, writes an app that takes off, and their dad says, "I'm going to become an ISV and sign up for the partner program."
Well, the funny part is, and I've learned this by talking to many, many companies, software companies, is I've used the term ISV and they scratch their head, especially if they're under 40.
I like your terminology.
They're like, I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, totally.
Or you say digital natives, and they're like, aren't we all digital native?
Right.
We all digital. AI native is the emerging term, but this, that's why I go back to software development companies or SDCs, because so many of them will just kind of stop me and say, you're using this term ISV. I don't know what that means. Is it me? Am I one of those? And you're like, let's just say software company.
Yeah. That's great.
But, it is interesting. I think that's going to happen. We're seeing, the Microsoft M12 group, which is our venture group, did a study that I was reading the other day where they talked about more companies, startups, getting to profitability faster than ever with smaller employee bases even. Yeah. Because they're able to augment capability with AI technologies, whether it's in the functions like HR and finance and things like that they don't need as many people. They keep their costs down. They're leveraging code tools, right? Like GitHub Copilot to produce code more accurate, more stable, faster. Yeah. And I think it's really going to transform. You're right. I think kids writing those apps, like, it's happening.
Yeah. Well, this is going to be interesting. Let's see.
Asher lets his children run amok on AI regularly by themselves. So I think it's going to be Asher's child.
My kids have like ChatGPT on their phones, and I'm like, hey, so like, why don't you search? They're like, well, because search doesn't talk back to me. I can't have a conversation with it. I'm like, fair.
Yeah.
Totally fair. Yeah.
Oh, I'm with you. My older children, I actually, spend time with them trying to see how they're using it, how they're thinking about it. And I'm super curious to see, when we launched Bing Chat, I sat with my son and walked him through it. And I was all so excited. And I was like, oh my gosh, isn't everybody talking about this at school? And, he was 13. He's like, no, like, what are you talking about? So he looked at me with that, befuddled look that I get quite often from my kids. And I sat him down and I just said, all right, look at this, like, watch what it can do. And, I walked him through writing a song, and we did it in the voice of Eminem, and we did it in the voice of, all these different people that he knew and were relevant to him. And then I said, now ask it. I said, do you ever want to write a game? Like, he said, yeah, I want a game that can do this. I want to kill aliens to collect coins. And I said, ask it to write that for you. And it started, it produced the code. And he's like, Dad, do you have an IDE on this machine? I'm like, no, I don't. Sorry. But ask it to give it to you in a different language. Ask it to give it to you in Scratch. And it did. And he was able, and it said, here's the link, go here. It said Scratch is a visual coding language, so therefore I don't have, code to give you. But these are the commands to go put into Scratch. Here's the link, go do it. And in minutes, he, it was rudimentary, but he had something.
Yeah, totally.
And it was one of those moments where I said, Andrew, like, do you now see like how different your world is going to be?
Totally. Yeah.
And he turned to me and he's like, yeah, like, and that was the first time he ever agreed with me and answered that. He's like, yeah, like this is
one there. Thanks, AI. You made my child finally see that I know what I'm talking about.
Exactly. And he was just like, yeah, this is different. It just unlocked that possibility for them to think, oh, I don't have that capability. I don't know how to write code. I don't know, that's for someone else to do. It just lowered that barrier of entry that I think, to your point, Asher, it's going to get lower.
Yeah. I don't know if Steve Clayton is still the chief storyteller for Microsoft, but we should have him like do an ad on Gen AI, bringing families together.
There you go. I've told that story. I think right now that society might be a little scared of that, but but it's there. It's happening, and I think it's just going to get more pervasive and safer, and people are going to get more comfortable. And if you just go back and look at technology trends and what people thought was so odd that they would, I remember discussing with someone like, why wouldn't you, like, what do you mean you're going to subscribe to the music? I don't own it. Like, how is it not on my phone or not? And you're just like, Now I can't even think about that. It's like I don't even know where to go to buy a song. I just have everything I want at my fingertips because I have this subscription. Our patterns change, but it takes time.
Let's talk about your point of view for the next, or maybe advice for the next, like let's say 12 to 18 months for business leaders specifically, right? And these are like, think of them founders and CEOs and chief product officers, people on that side, not on the commercial side, because I think the commercial side will come a little bit later. But this is where the development of the software is happening, and also like for companies that are services companies who have now an opportunity to become software companies.
Yeah, for sure. So I think going back to that maturity statement, right? They're all going to be at very different places, and so it's hard to say this is one thing every CEO or founder should think about because they're all going to be in different phases of maturity. But I do think one of the first things I encourage people to do is if you're not spending time learning about AI, you better, because no matter who you are, you're just going to need to be more articulate, more thoughtful, more knowledgeable about generative artificial intelligence. And honestly, I use AI to do that. Like I use AI to learn AI. And so I have this ongoing list of all these meetings I'm in where I just like someone will use a term and I'll think, I want to go learn about that. And someone will talk about a deep technical concept and I'll write it down and I'll go back and I'll ask Copilot and it'll educate me. So I think you've got to use AI to learn AI is the first thing. Then the next thing I think is one of the great lessons I learned from Satya was to not do things out of envy, do things out of purpose for your organization. And so leaders need to find their thing that will differentiate for value. Because I think often people will want to go follow a trend or do something because they think that's what someone else is doing, instead of really honing in on what is it that their software provides, their company, the unique value their company provides, and how do you deliver that through innovation? And is it generative AI? It may not be. I have some fantastic partners who are just saying, you know what? Our next wave of product innovation actually isn't generative AI. Like there's still a tremendous amount of growth for us in what sounds weird to say are like more traditional areas. And I think that's super, super insightful. And so you've got to really, again, you better understand and start to really sharpen your skills on AI and to try to pursue things that add value to your unique market value. Don't just chase things out of envy. Yeah.
Super. Well, I mean, also your group manages accounts, companies like Epic and Siemens and stuff like that, right?
Industry accounts, yeah, industry partners.
Yeah, that's a pretty big bucket of companies that I'm not sure if I'm sure they can utilize AI in pockets, but for them to really go through this AI transformation, they need like a 12 to 24-month cycle just to kind of bring the capabilities in house.
Yeah, so industries where we're seeing a lot of really incredible leading innovation. So when you think about horizontal providers, whether it's data, infrastructure services and ones like that, you're seeing AI being used a little more behind the scenes than it would be in terms of the user interfaces at the end user level. But in the industry, you're seeing it really start to take off. In some of our geographies, there's areas around the world where industry is just absolutely leading the way with AI and generative AI innovation. And I think that's where you're going to start to see it most prevalent. The pattern we see, obviously it emerges first in things like business applications. We're all seeing, call centers. Yeah. That's a pattern. We all hear that story so often because it's a natural fit, right? You have something that can analyze incredible amounts of information, audio, text, whatnot, and give you insights. So call centers and business applications are a natural place. But now we're starting to see some pretty specific industrial or industry-specific technologies emerge, some capabilities that are quite powerful. Things that, oil and gas or energy companies are able to parse through and get insights out of just what have traditionally been massive amounts of data in very short periods of time and drive true cost savings and production changes at a level that I think weren't possible.
I've seen before, yeah.
So I think
I know we're going to run out of time. Yeah. Which, if you give us time, we'll take 4 hours of your time because we're partner people and we'd love to talk about technology, especially on the software development side, because we feel that that's where the production is happening there. Then the channels and the alliances help with distribution and consumption. But let's talk a little bit about just your time with Satya and like, how did you prepare for that? And like, I also feel like we can do a whole podcast on that, but I really wanted to cover the software development stuff first. But how did you prepare for a role like that, and what did it take to support somebody like that?
Yeah. Boy, how do you prepare? I don't know how you ever really prepare for a role like that. It came to me in a very surprising way or humbling experience. Someone approached me about it, and at the time I said, let me think about it, because I'd done a role for one of our leaders before, who was another leader I got close to and learned a tremendous amount from. Our COO at the time, Kevin Turner, he taught me so much.
Yeah.
And so then I was on a different path, and someone said, hey, can you come talk to Satya? And I said, okay, that'd be interesting, because I've done what I thought was a staff role in the past. But this was different. My first conversation with him was just questions. There was just incredible amount of insightful questions that just went all over the board, from my thoughts on personal philosophy and life, to family, to business, to the company, to organizational philosophy and structure. And it really started to help me understand this was a person who thought very differently, thought about our company and the world very differently. And so, preparation, again, you just try to really familiarize yourself with the level of topics that someone like that is thinking about. When you think about the scale and scope of our company, how it fits in the world and the impact it has in the world, and the wingspan of a leader like Satya, that what he's dealing with and thinking about, you have to elevate your thinking and change into a macro level very quickly. But at the same time, what I think makes him a tremendous person and leader is his ability to also come down to the code level, if you will, right? Finance and code. And so, honestly, I don't know that you can ever really prepare yourself for it, but you get in and you start running and you start to observe. And again, you truly embrace a growth mindset, and you convince yourself and tell yourself, I don't know that yet, but I better go learn. I wish I had a co-pilot when I started that job, because it would have made things a lot faster.
I'm sure it helped that your background was server and tools, and so was his. So there was some level of familiarity at
oh man, I sold it. I wish I could say we were similar, but boy, I did not try to talk architecture and design and code with him.
Yeah. Wise move.
I knew better than that.
All right, Kelly, let's wrap up. Do you have any last parting questions for Jason? And then we can wrap up.
The last question. I think one of the things you said was interesting before about one of your big learnings taking over this role is kind of communicating with those partners, making sure that they understand what's to be offered, and being able to navigate the large ecosystem that is Microsoft. So curious, do you have any thoughts on how to approach that going forward strategically, in terms of whether that's, better comms, better automation, better moments of community, internal alignment with other teams, so that things are actually more structured versus the left hand going out to the right hand and then partners getting confused. Because I think it's a common problem in larger ecosystems. So I'd be curious if you have any high level thoughts.
Yeah, I think you nailed all of them, right? We need to communicate better. We need to communicate more clearly. We need to make sure that we're reducing our own friction, right? Internally, as well as how it shows up for our partners. And so I think everything you listed, Kelly, is on my list of to-dos, ironically, and more, but it never ends. We need to, again, embrace this idea that it's more like a CI/CD pipeline. We've got to constantly improve, constantly deliver, and understand, what our partners need, and listen to them. And again, thinking about it, I guess the difference in my mind is acknowledging and understanding that the larger software companies have very different needs than the smaller ones, who can move more nimbly, make decisions faster. The decision makers can often be very technical people, and you've got a very different audience there. And acknowledging that and speaking to them directly with what they need, not what we want them to buy or what we think they should hear from us. Really listening to their needs, and then of course overlaying that with the basics of being transparent about programs, being vocal about what we offer. I watch a lot of competitor announcements and things like that, and I just think we have that too. I need to make sure people know about it. Yeah, and so that is, we can do a way better job there. And that's something that I take deeply personal and as a mission. And then, of course, removing friction, right? We can be really hard to do work with. And I don't think anybody would argue that. And I think partners deserve better. We've got to get better. We've got to get better internally to get friction out. We've got to get better externally to deliver for partners so that it's just easier to find things, do things, and work with us. And I think people's tolerance for that friction is low. I think the world has evolved. They want better things, and we need to get moving to do that for them. Yeah.
Oh man, we just hit such a cool topic, which we'll probably need to do it. But Kelly actually led the advocacy for the HubSpot app technology partner program.
Oh wow!
And she's done an incredible job over the last. I mean, I'm not just saying that because she's my friend, but she actually really did an incredible.
He is biased, but thank you.
There's empirical proof that it was amazing.
Incredible job of, like getting the word out there and just hugging the app marketplace. And because of that, they benefited. So you guys should probably connect after this.
Yeah,
but Jason, we could, again, like I said, probably spend like another 3 hours talking to you. Maybe we'll do a Lex Friedman style podcast one day and have 4 hours. But is there anything that you're looking for from the market that we can help you back with? I mean, PL has like 1,400, 1,500 software development companies from like Writer all to ServiceNow to SpaceX to we've got them all, right? So happy to share that with you. But also this is going to go out to, I don't know, 35, 40,000 people. So what are you looking for that the market can just share with you so you can help us all?
It sounds probably cliche, but that feedback, that signal back from partners on where we need to get better. I think we get it, but I need more of it. I look at a lot of the different signals and the way partners, what they're using, the workloads they're using and things like that to help shape our services to offer to them. But I think even using your community or working closer with you, Asher and Kelly, to say, you can help really put signal to noise for us and bring that feedback back. Because I think the community you've built is so incredibly powerful. There's nothing like it. And so really helping us understand and synthesize within that frame I talked about of, the maturity journey that so many of these companies are on, their own personal journeys overlaid with this new technology and how we can really help them grow. But synthesizing what you're hearing for us to say, hey, Microsoft, let me be your generative AI co-pilot. You're focusing on this, but what the community is really asking for is this.
So yeah, happy to.
And I don't pretend that we always know the answer. We can figure it out. It helps to have partners like you to be able to say, here's what we're hearing, because sometimes partners will tell you things they won't tell us, or they'll say it differently. There's different stakes involved.
Yeah, they always tell Kelly the truth, not me.
I think so.
It is true, though. People don't want to necessarily offend the platform, right? So sometimes they're more comfortable with third parties.
It is. But we need organizations like yourself. We need people like you building that community and really helping get that voice, to platform providers like us. And so I would say, let's keep the dialogue going, and that's how we can be most helpful, and the community can be. Continue to use that voice.
Super. All right, Jason, I know you have to run too, and I'm a big fan of ending meetings on time. So thank you so much for spending time with us. And if it's okay with you, we'd love to bring you back in like 6 to 8 months or so, and then actually have some more pointed questions from the community for you, and then we can have a cool dialogue again. And maybe I'll come up with the hoodie for that one too.
I'll come up with a new one.
Cool.
All right.
Thanks for listening. Do us a favor. Subscribe to the podcast on your favorite player or YouTube. Share it with a colleague or tell us what you thought of it on LinkedIn. See you next time.